Good morning, Member Hurst.
Good morning, and good morning to everyone.
Morning.
Okay. Oh, good morning, Scott. I see that you joined us. And Emily, I see you're on the line. Good morning. It looks like we're just waiting, well, of course, until 9 o'clock and for a couple of other people to join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, good morning, everybody. It looks like we have a quorum of hearing board members, so we can go ahead and get started.
Well, thank you, everybody. And welcome, to the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District Hearing Board meeting. And today is Thursday, November 18th, 2021. So I'm going to allow Madam Clerk, to definitely go through the order of business and to read, the required material, from the state. Go ahead, Dawn.
Okay, thank you, Chair Rodriguez. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all members are participating via teleconference, and as such, all votes will be taken by roll call vote. So Chair Rodriguez?
Present.
Member Hurst?
Present.
Member Powers?
Here.
And Member Schlick?
Present.
Okay. So thank you. I will now swear in anybody who would like to speak on an item that is on today's agenda. And this includes any members of the public, APCD staff, petitioners, and their representatives. So at this time, please turn on your video and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the matter before this hearing board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Now I will ask that the following individuals please identify themselves for the record. Hearing Board Counsel.
Emily Helms, Senior Deputy County Counsel, Counsel for the Hearing Board.
Thank you. Air Pollution Control District staff.
I am Plotner Program Coordinator.
Mary Mahoney, Civil Actions Investigator.
Heather McGee-Hill, Civil Actions Investigator.
Scott Nestor, Civil Actions Investigator.
Okay, are there any representatives for petition 4523 for Tom and Jerry Peralt?
Yes, Paul Weir is here as the designated agent.
Okay, thank you. And lastly, are there any representatives of petition 4525 for the city of Oceanside? If you can please identify yourself for the record.
Lori, you're on mute. Could you please repeat?
Yes, sorry. Lori Rigby, Compliance Officer for the City of Oceanside Water Utilities Department.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Ryan Williams, Plant Maintenance Supervisor for the City of Oceanside. And I have Scott here. 1 second.
Hello, this is Scott Spiegel, Chief Plant Operator here at San Jose,
City of Oceanside.
City of Oceanside.
Okay, is Rudy Guzman on the line also? I see he's there, but okay, so he'll be also speaking today, right? Okay. Hi, Rudy. We were just doing introductions and I just wanted to make sure, were you also sworn in earlier?
I was not. I didn't know if I was planned to be speaking or not.
Okay, well, we can just do that real quick. So just in case, that way the meeting will run a little smoother. So along with Rudy, if there's anybody else that just joined us that missed being sworn in, can you please raise your right hand and then just answer this question? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in the matter before this hearing board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
I swear I do.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anybody else that I missed that might need to be sworn in or that needs to introduce themselves? Okay, seeing no hands or anybody, we can go ahead and proceed with the first administrative item, which would be the approval of the minute orders for October 28th.
Before we actually get there, I know that we actually have quorum. And one of our members may not be feeling, that well today. And I'm going to allow, member Schlick, to decide whether or not she can continue, with the meeting. And if not, definitely we have quorum, member Schlick. I want for you to get better. And I think that that's the most important thing.
Thank you. Yes, I will sign off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, members. Get better.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so very much. Now let's actually proceed, with the administrative items as Madam Clerk actually indicated. And the first one on the agenda is the approval of meeting orders for October 28th, 2021. The packet, included the draft statement of proceedings as well. And I would like to, ask, first of all, the board members whether or not they reviewed this and if there are any comments.
I have no comments.
Okay, Member Hurst, no comments? Okay, I do not have comments either. So, good. Any comments now from the APCD staff?
District has some comments.
Okay. So, I know that we can see each other, but we need to record this also, audio. So, just a kind reminder, I do this all the time. I forget to unmute myself, so going back again to the APCD members, Mary, do you have any comments on the draft statement?
We don't have any comments. Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you so very much. So if that is, the case, with no comments, do I get a motion, to accept, the statement of proceedings and the, for the meeting, the meeting of October 28th, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
Member Hurst makes the motion. And second, Member Powers. Madam Clerk, could you please, call the roll?
Yes, Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Member Hurst.
Yes.
Member Powers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The minutes are approved with all members who are present voting aye.
Thank you so very much. Next on the agenda, certainly, is going to be the petitions before the board. And I'm going to definitely take those in the order in which they are presented on the agenda. First one is petition 4523. Madam Clerk, could you please let us know about status on 4523?
Chair Rodriguez, before we move on to the actual petitions, there is an item B, an administrative item, and that is the continuance of teleconference meeting option pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E. And so the board will need to vote to either adopt or reject that continuance of the teleconferencing meeting.
I am so sorry, I skipped over that one. I mean, thank you, for keeping me, organized on this one. That done. So, so do we need to get a motion as well done on this one? Because we actually have no choice. We just need to say your name.
Yes, there needs to be a motion to either adopt or reject the continuance of teleconference meetings. So if you adopt continuing, then the meetings will continue via Zoom. And then if you reject that, then we will have in-person meetings.
Well, if that is the case, then I definitely move, to continue, the teleconferencing meeting option pursuant to Government Code Section 54953, within parentheses E. Do I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Member Hurst, Don, you have, the first motion and the second. Could you please call the roll?
Okay, Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Member Hurst.
Yes.
Member Powers. Member Powers, I think you're on mute still.
Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes with all members who are present voting aye, and that means that the meetings will continue and for another month. When we vote on this, again, we have to vote on this every 30 days. Yeah, not every time, just every 30 days. So that means at the December 9th meeting, this will also need to be voted on.
Okay, perfect. So thank you, Don. So now let's get, to petition 4523. And I believe, Don has an update for us.
Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to say that there is no public comment and that we can go right into doing the petition. So right now we have petition 4523 before us, and that was for Tom and Jerry Peralt. They had requested a regular variance from condition number 13 of their certificate of registration, number APCD 2019 PTO 003287. Petitioners were seeking relief from the annual operational limit for the diesel engine located at 3210 Oceanside Boulevard, and that was to be through 12/31/2021. The petitioner's business recycles broken slabs of asphalt and concrete into usable base materials. The clerk of the board received a request to withdraw petition 4523 on 11/11/21. And we do have Paul Weir joining us who can speak to that if there's any question. But right now we need to vote, the board needs to vote as to whether to accept this request for withdrawal.
That is very true. I think, we're going to allow Paul Weir to definitely, provide us a very succinct summary. That before we proceed with the vote. Paul, please give us a status. Really very succinctly. And how it is that you're proceeding. With the district to get into compliance.
Well, the facility remains not in operation, and in accordance with the permit condition 13, then will not resume operation until the start of the year when our master clock starts again. But real briefly, the Air District is making progress on the application that we submitted to change out the hour limitation for fuel limitation, in that the district has found the application to be complete and has not requested any additional information from the consulting engineer. That would be me. And so given the holidays, not sure we'll get this done before the end of the year, but at least we're going forward with everything that the district requires.
No, thank you very much, Paul, and definitely looking forward, to seeing, the Tom and Jerry not only in operation, but operating under compliance, and revised permit. So this is very good news, by the way. Are there any questions of Paul Weir by the members of the board? No?
No questions.
Perfect. So, well, with that, and certainly knowing that the district can certainly work, with Paul on all of these details, I would like, to actually hear, get a motion, for example, to accept, the withdrawal of petition 4523.
I would
I'd be happy
motion.
to make, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Member Hurst, please.
I'd be happy to make that motion to accept the withdrawal.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Okay, I will now call the roll. Chair Rodriguez,
Yes.
Member Hurst,
Yes.
and Member Powers.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with all members being present and voted aye.
Well, no, thank you so very much. Again, and good luck, on that one, Paul. And hopefully that will be for good. You're always welcome, but maybe on something in the future. How about that? Excellent.
Again,
Go ahead.
Thank you to the board. Good day. now.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's actually proceed then to the next item on the docket, which is petition 4525, and this is the City of Oceanside Wastewater Treatment Plan. Madam Clerk, if you could please, state, that this petition.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The final item for discussion is petition 4525 from the City of Oceanside Wastewater Treatment Plant. The petitioner requests an interim and regular variance from the conditions of permit APCD 2006 PTO 920530 until November 18th of 2022. Due to a breakdown of a blower associated with an air pollution control device at their wastewater treatment plant located at 3950 North River Road in Oceanside. Before we proceed with the hearing, the clerk of the board has also received a PowerPoint presentation from APCD compliance staff on 11/17 that they would like to present. The board will need to vote whether to accept this additional presentation or not.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, on that presentation. We do have already material that has been submitted, to us. Certainly, with the packet, and it made it to us, in due time. Personally, I feel, that a very succinct presentation not only is visually appealing, but keeps us very much in alignment on that element. So this is just, my personal view. So I would actually have no issue on, moving on accepting, that new presentation. Members of the board, what is your feeling on that?
I'd like to see it.
I'm in complete agreement, Chair Rodriguez. I think it would be worthwhile to see.
Yes, well, in that case, I would like, to make a motion to accept, the material, that the district is, will be using, in today's meeting. Do I get a second?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Member Hurst, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Okay. Member Rodriguez, Chair
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Okay, Member Hurst?
Yes.
Member Powers?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with all board members being present and voting aye. And the presentation will be entered into the record as Exhibit B, the district opening summary for petition 4525.
Thank you so very much, Madam Clerk. Before we proceed, I just wanted to kind of, review a couple of the elements, of order here. Customarily, we allow, the APCD to make their presentation first. And I know that the City of Oceanside and the APCD have been working together, on making sure that we can proceed, with this hearing. After that, certainly I would be asking, petitioner, in this case, not the City of Oceanside, to not only make a presentation, but focus on those items, discreetly those items, that will get you to make the 6 findings that are required for this, the requested petition. Certainly, this petition could actually take you up to 1 year. Under the umbrella under the variance, if it was to be granted. So there has to be a correlation and a very good balance, between not only operations, but also reduction and containment of any air emissions, that you would actually have, from your site. We understand, that you provide an essential public service, and nonetheless, we still need to be in compliance, so how are we going to get to compliance? That's bottom line. And with that, are there any questions on that review? No? Well, with that, Heather, I do not believe I've ever seen you before here, so welcome. I will definitely allow you to make the presentation on behalf of the APCD.
Good morning. Thank you for that warm welcome, Chair. Just for the record, my name is Heather McGee Hill, and I am a civil actions investigator for the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. And I have prepared an overview of the interim portion of petition number 4525. Madam Clerk, can you please bring up my PowerPoint?
Yes. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. This is the PowerPoint presentation that you submitted yesterday. So I just want to make sure this is the correct document.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay.
My overview and visual aids will include background information about the plant, such as a map of the surrounding area, the compliance history, including pictures of the relevant equipment, a report on the emergency variance conditions as well. I've also prepared an overview of the district's response to the petition, which includes comments on the findings and an outline of recommendations. Madam Clerk, could you please forward to the next slide? Thank you. I'm going to begin with a background about the operation. The petitioner, the city of Oceanside, operates the San Luis Rey wastewater treatment plant, as we've already heard, is located at 3950 North River Road in Oceanside. The facility was constructed in 1972, but has undergone numerous improvements since then. As the chair pointed out, the plant provides the essential public service of treating sewage and thus operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The petitioner has 9 active permits at this site, including the subject of today's hearing, which we've already heard the number of. APCD 2006, PTO 920530. The plant has several pollution control scrubbers and associated monitoring equipment. The equipment of interest today is a blower referred to by unit number 1510. It has associated with it a caustic scrubber, aeration basins, monitors, and a stack. As you can see in the slide, the plant is surrounded by residences to the east and southeast. The nearest residence is over 800 feet from the blower's associated stack. The nearest schools and childcare centers are over 2,000 feet from the plant. Now, a brief description of the compliance history related to this facility. Besides the breakdown triggering this petition, since 2016, there have been 2 breakdowns related to this permit. Both involved different equipment and were quickly fixed and involved no odor complaints. In total, the district has received 6 odor complaints in the last 6 years. None of the complaints inspections have led to notices of violations, also known as NOVs. There have been no NOVs issued related to this permit in the last 6 years. Besides the NOV related to the breakdown, which triggered this petition, which I'll discuss in the next slide. The facility has been granted 2 emergency variances for permit condition number 4. One was on February 20th, 2015 for a different piece of equipment, and the other relates to this petition. Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, can you please give me the next slide? Thank you. I'm now going to summarize the breakdown events and emergency variants leading up to this petition. According to Work Order Detail Report, Exhibit B of the district's response to this petition, on October 26, 2021, The blower fan identified by unit number 1510 was vibrating with such severity that several of the anchor bolts that secured the fan frame to the concrete pad were sheared off, and one section of the steel frame base was broken loose. Thus, the associated equipment was immediately taken out of service and the blower was removed, as shown on the left side of this slide. For comparison, its intact twin is shown on the right side of the slide. Numerous repairs were begun, and during this process, it was found that the scrubber's packing media also needed to be replaced. On October 27th, the district received an email notification of the breakdown. On October 29th, the district conducted an inspection at the facility. And on November 2nd, after reviewing operation logs, petitioner was issued a notice of violation because the breakdown was called in late. Next slide, please. Thank you. On November 1st, the petitioner submitted the emergency variance petition number 4524 for only permit condition number 4. The petitioner later requested the addition of permit conditions number 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7, but this addition was denied at the beginning of the emergency variance hearing. On November 3rd, the chair of the San Diego Air Pollution Control District Board granted the emergency variance for petition condition number 4. It has been in effect until today, and it has the following 5 conditions. 1, to keep the aeration basin covered at all times. 2, to report to the district any complaints received by the facility by 4 p.m. daily. 3, to maintain chemical usage upstream of the scrubber to mitigate odors. 4, to monitor hydrogen sulfide daily. And 5, to submit a weekly report to the district on the previously listed conditions by noon on Fridays. And 6, to follow maintenance procedures according to schedule. My report on the conditions of the interim variance is that they have been met. We have had 2 Friday weekly submittals, and there have been no complaints, and the hydrogen sulfide measurements going into and out of the scrubber have been 0 parts per million. Next slide, please. Thank you. I will now provide additional updates relating to this petition. On November 10th, the petitioner submitted a timeline with estimated milestone dates. One of these milestones was that on November 8th, the city of Oceanside approved the purchase of a replacement scrubber packing media and a slightly larger new blower. But the actual purchase orders have not yet been generated. In the meantime, petitioner has rebuilt a slightly larger blower as part of a planned temporary repair. Once the new media has been received, both the new media and rebuilt blower can be installed and tested. If successful, this temporary repair may be operational before the regular variance hearing on December 9th. This concludes the background summary. I will now summarize the district's response to the petition. Next slide, please. Petition 4525 before you has 2 parts. First, it asks for the interim variance to take effect today until December 9th, and then a regular variance to be heard on December 9th, requested to last until November 2022. I would like to remind you all that in order to grant the interim variance today, that the board must find good cause that the petitioner is likely to make a persuasive case when the regular variance is heard. For the regular variance, the board would need to make all 6 findings described in California Health and Safety Code section 42352. Thus, I will now share the district's comments on each of these 6 findings. Next slide, please. Thank you. The criteria for finding A is that the petitioner is or will be in violation of the permit conditions being asked for relief from. While the petition before you does ask for relief from permit conditions number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, it was submitted on November 2nd before the emergency variance was heard. And recent discussions with the petitioner have indicated they are currently only seeking relief from permit condition number 4. This is because they are currently and are expecting to be able to meet the rest of the conditions. Thus, the rest of my comments relate only to permit condition number 4 and the equipment related to blower 1510. Permit condition number 4 assures that the air pollution control equipment shall be maintained in good operating condition and in full operation, except during periods of scheduled equipment maintenance not to exceed 3 consecutive days. The district believes the petitioner will only be in non-compliance for permit condition number 4 and only the equipment related to blower 1510, since this is the blower that is not in full operation. Condition number 4 is the only condition the petitioner has received a variance for in the past. Next slide, please. Thank you. Moving on, the district notes that petitioner should provide more information about finding B, C, and D. Finding B requires that circumstances are beyond reasonable control. Additionally, since the petitioner meets the definition of providing an essential public service, the hearing board also needs to consider whether or not requiring immediate compliance would impose an unreasonable burden. The district notes that the closure is impractical in this case. The district suggests that the petitioner clarify why replacement parts were not ordered when the vibration was first detected, which according to maintenance reports was as early as September. Moving on to finding C. Finding C asks about the benefits in reducing air contaminants with and without the variance. The district notes the petitioner does not provide this type of comparison in the petition. Moving on to finding D. Finding D asks the petitioner to explain what efforts have been made to achieve compliance instead of requesting a variance, including considering curtailing operations. The district recommends clarification about what efforts have been made instead of requesting a variance. In addition, the district notes that curtailing operations is not possible given the essential service being provided. Next slide, please. Thank you. Moving on to findings E and F. Finding E asks how the emissions will be reduced to the maximum extent. The district notes that temporary repairs and use of chemicals upstreams were previously discussed, but not written into the petition. Finding F requires that emissions be monitored or quantified and are not likely to cause a nuisance or a public threat to public health or safety. The district notes that the daily hydrogen sulfide emissions measured going in and out of the scrubber have been 0 parts per million and that there have been no complaints since the breakdown. Next slide, please. Thank you. In conclusion, the district does not oppose granting an interim variance for only petition permit condition number 4 for only the equipment associated with blower 1510, given additional clarifications relating to findings B, C, and D are provided, and providing it does not create a nuisance with the following district recommendations. Next slide, please. If granted, the district has the following recommendations. A, that the district be notified by emailing myself when the following milestones are achieved. 1, when the petitioner has submitted an application and fees to the district engineering division to install a larger blower, ideally by November 29th, 2021. 2, when the new media and new blower are purchased. 3, when the new media is received. 4, when the previously described temporary repairs, which include the new media and rebuilt blower, have been installed. And 5, when the temporary repairs are deemed good and fully operational. The district recommends, without the temporary repairs operating, that the emergency variance conditions be continued. Just to recap, this would include keeping the aeration basin covered except during maintenance, reporting to the district any complaints received by the facility by 4 p.m. daily, maintaining chemical usage upstream, monitoring hydrogen sulfide daily in parts per million, submitting weekly reports on the above conditions, and following maintenance procedures according to schedule. If the temporary repairs are good and fully operating, then the petitioner would be back in compliance with permit condition number 4, and would therefore only need to submit a weekly report by noon on Fridays, indicating the operational status of the temporary repairs. But if the temporary repairs are not good and fully operating, then the facility would need to return to the conditions listed above and notify the district within 1 day. This concludes the district's statement. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Heather. I mean, very concise, and again, I mean, the delivery was really very effective as well. So are there any questions from the members of the board? I mean, to the APCD staff.
I have no questions.
Member Hurst?
No, I have no questions.
I have a couple of questions. I mean, so Madam Clerk, I mean, if you can bring back slide 11. Sorry about that, Dawn. Just want to make, a couple of points, I mean, for clarification on this one. Okay. So I know, that these milestones, I mean, in section 8, first of all, I mean, I know that the milestones are something that are recommendations. I mean, so I appreciate that, certainly. But, I'm looking also, I mean, at the deadline, I mean, by the petitioner, I mean, all the way out, to November of 2022. And I believe, though, I mean, we actually had initiated, conversations, I mean, for everything, provided, I guess, supply chain, can be, I mean, resolved sometime, in May of 22. Do you find this excessive? I mean, or based on your experience, I mean, what is your, feeling on that one?
Mary, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, sure. What we were thinking is that we'd like to get more detail from petitioner about the shipping date. So far, what we know is that it needs to be manufactured, which takes 17 weeks, 17 to 18 weeks, and then about a 1-week delivery period, and then install. So we are looking at a longer time frame, but we don't think that should likely be until November of 2022. So during the regular hearing, we were thinking about suggesting a date that's more in line with what's really potentially needed. But more importantly, I think we're hoping that by December 9th, petitioner will be in compliance with the temporary repair. The rebuilt blower is expected to be a successful repair. And so it's anticipated that should be functioning and fully operational by December 7th, in which case we would have no violation from permit condition number 4.
Correct. Okay, no, certainly I will bring this up, because of course, I mean, one of the elements that we need to do today is, even though the interim is granted based on good cause, I mean, we need definitely to stage, this type of request, I mean, for the regular variance, so thank you so very much. So I was actually looking at the same thing as well. I mean, in item number B, I mean, I believe though that B 2, it should be any odor complaints, not any just complaints. Okay, I mean, or nuisance, I mean, complaints, so I think, that makes this very clear. Because, I mean, sometimes it could be, noisy, and that's not within scope. So any other complaints, okay, so, and then, I mean, on C, I mean, since they would actually be, your suggestion is, or recommendation, to submit weekly reports by noon on Fridays, the operational status of the temporary repairs, that could definitely be like wrapped up, in B. Okay, I mean, those are definitely, I mean, my only questions, and now, if there are no other questions, I mean, of the district, we can certainly allow the city of Oceanside to provide, I mean, their presentation and addressing, I mean, those elements, So who's going to be speaking for the city of Oceanside? I see a hand up, I mean, that Ms. Rigby.
Yeah, I just had a question really about, it was slide 11A1 about applying for a permit and fees. I'm unaware of what permit and fees that we still need.
I can speak to that if that would be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, so essentially from the information that we have discussed, the rebuilt blower, in addition to the new permanent blower, will be 25,000 CFM, and the permit is currently written for the blower to be 24,000 CFM. And so we want to ensure that the difference is considered during the permitting process. So that's why we have that A1 recommendation for petitioner to reach out to district engineering staff and get that process started.
But since it's a temporary unit and will not be the permanent blower, is that necessary? Because I found these permitting processes take 6 months to a year, and it may be a moot point at that point and be kind of a waste of time for the engineers to prepare something that won't be permanent.
So my understanding, based on the quote, the email that was provided in your petition, that new blower, the permanent blower, we'll say new blower and old blower, just to be clear, but the new blower is also 25,000 CFM.
Okay, I will contact the engineer then.
Yeah, so Ms. Rigby, I mean, if we can actually take, your presentation and address every single element first, and then we can definitely go over the conditions. That will be the best way to approach it. So that way, we are in alignment, kind of, comparing all those elements, if that can be done. So, I mean, going back, to my question, will you be making the presentation for the city of Oceanside?
All the information I have has been submitted to the APCD for review. We don't have a lot of new information at this time. The timelines are still the same. Everything is in process. So at this time, I don't have anything additional to add in regards as to what's been presented. I can let Scott Spiegel speak to any new information, but everything we have has been submitted.
Okay, so this is, let's go, back. I mean, that certainly. So this is not for good cause. I mean, I know your conditions, and I know that every single member, of the board has known your conditions. Certainly, you're not required to make a presentation at all. I mean, but I think, it would be to your advantage, to stage why, was the, city of Oceanside unable, to repair, this fan. I mean, immediately after identifying, that it was, on breakdown, it was malfunctioning. So again, that may be a summary, of the status that got you here, because again, the rest of the members of the board have not heard your presentation, okay? So again, it is definitely highly recommended. It's not required, but it's highly recommended that you do this. And state it properly and see what is it, that you have done to this point, to minimize the emissions, and what are the, where is the status, for the city of Oceanside, because I can imagine that, from the time that you submitted this package to today, things are progressing. So that would be to definitely your advantage, So going back to my question, a nice, brief presentation would be, or just answering the questions that the district has will be just fine.
Okay. Well, one thing that was not in the presentation is that this blower was replaced 3 years ago. It was not an old unit. The maintenance was up to date, the preventative maintenance, which records were provided to the APCD during the emergency hearing. So this was not a unit that was being neglected, let to run down. We had a spare unit that was used for this exact unit. So this was not something that was just, left to wear itself out. So, and as you can see from the maintenance records, the vibrations had been addressed by our mechanics at the time. Sometimes we cannot always predict when things are, going to resume with the issues that we were having. It wasn't something that, again, it wasn't a negligence issue. It had been addressed at the time in September. The city has made all efforts to fast track the vendor packages to get the parts approved. Our vendor packages can take 6 to 8 weeks, and we have accomplished that in a week and a half. So the city is prioritizing all of the repairs due to the nature of the breakdown. Another thing that the city is moving forward with is we are in the current budgeting for our fiscal year 22-23. And in that fiscal year, we are asking for 2 additional units to order to have on the shelf in the event that another blower would be broken down in the future since we have used our spare part. These blowers do cost about $30,000 to $50,000. I forget the exact number. So we do have to budget for it. It's not a part that you can just easily snap your fingers and have at your doorstep. In the presentation, it was said that these do take about 17 weeks to manufacture. Many of you might have heard about supply chain issues, ships being left to sea, waiting to get unloaded. We try our best to work with our vendors to get parts made locally if we can, but sometimes that's not always available. So we are doing everything we can to get these parts in, have backups. Our mechanics were able to remachine an existing part, as you all know. So because the new part is a long time to get order, we've used the resources we have with our own crew on site to prioritize that backup blower. One thing discussed in the emergency hearing is that we have like a left facing attachment and then a right facing attachment. So the backup blower was the opposite attachment we needed. So we were able to remachine that to fit on the existing unit. So we have indeed prioritized getting a blower back online to return that unit to service as soon as we have been able to. We have continued to add chemicals and monitor hydrogen sulfide into and out of the unit twice a day. I have been talking to APCD staff, both Mary and Heather, I talked to 2 days ago to update them on where we're at. We have 2 POs that we're just waiting on getting for the, once we get the PO approved for the media, we can get that within a couple of days to a week. So once that media is in, we will be able to do the change out in the scrubber and get the new blower on and get that online. We are hoping the interim variance is the only period that we'll need. So that is the city's goal. This has not caused any nuisance conditions, and we are unable to shut down operations because people are going to keep flushing, the water comes in. So yeah, we don't have any other options. So, compliance is important to us, and we're doing everything that we are able to get this taken care of quickly, which was the original idea. When the blower first was failing, we were trying to fix it within that day period. There was some misunderstanding. The way the permit's written, the terminology was very different. We don't use the word outage for like a breakdown. The permit was a little confusing. We thought we had a day to try to fix it. So it was not the city's intent to not notify the APCD compliance department. We were trying to do everything we could to get that blower online to prevent the breakdown from occurring. And clearly that isn't what happened, but that's at least everything I have to say from our perspective. We're trying to get this thing back online. And if Scott Spiegel or Ryan Williams have anything else to add, they're certainly welcome to as well.
Before we move there, one of the elements that I think that is critical, for today's hearing, is the fact, on the conditions for which we're requesting, the hearing. Okay, so we have a number of conditions. I think 1, 2, 3, 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I think 5 and 7, of which the APCD spoke. That again they opposed all but number 4. The 4 blower 1510. So do you agree? That is the right request for this petition.
One thing to say about conditions 1, 2, and 3, we are running chemicals into a blower or a scrubber that is not operating. So we are doing that because the equipment is operational. It's not the same effect as when the blower is in operation. So you're not going to get, the result you're expecting. So the city, prefers that 1, 2, and 3 would have been included, but that was not accepted by the APCD. So, we're running chemicals into a unit that's not fully operational. So just as long as the APCD understands that that's not the design and the engineering of that equipment. So we're able to do it. We're running it. We're being able to meet those minimum requirements in the permit. So we're fine with continuing with condition number 4.
Okay, thank you so very much. I mean, yes, I mean, Mr. Spiegel, I mean, or Guzman, I mean, I think, that your presentation during the emergency variance, hearing was very effective. So would you like to add anything to Ms. Rigby's, I mean, the testimony today?
I think Lori actually said everything I was going to say. So good job, Lori. Thank you. But yeah, the top off her thing on the chemicals, it kind of is just a waste of chemicals because all it is going into a sump and then going down the drain. So that's all I wanted to add there. And and another thing is we do have a couple extra blowers, and I think that's why one of it, or we could have mistaken thinking we had a spare blower, because we have 2 spare blowers, but they're the opposite hand. So it makes it kind of hard when you got a bunch of equipment up there and you think you have it and you don't. So that was another thing that on our part that we should have had marked left and right and stuff. So, but that's all I got. You got anything?
Nope, we're making progress here.
I mean, I am a little bit more familiar because, as I mentioned, I mean, I heard, the emergency variance. I mean, but the other members of the board, however, I mean, more than likely have questions for you. And you need to bring them up, I mean, to the familiarity, I mean, of your operations. I mean, that is really very critical, I mean, here. So I'm going to allow, I mean, that member Hurst and member Powers, I mean, to, ask questions as well.
I do have a question about pouring chemicals down a sump. How much are you pouring in terms of gallons, and how much is it costing you to do this?
It probably offhand, it's probably 60 to 130 gallons a day, depending on this. It would depend on the strength of the foul odor coming into the system. So with nothing coming in, it could be 25. It just depends on what it's going to keep that ORP into the proper permanent level there. So
I can go ahead.
And there's multiple scrubbers coming off this line, so it's hard to detect exactly how much chemical is going to it right now.
What size is the pump, Scott?
It's a new pump. I think it was a 65 gallon a day, but I'd have to go back and look on that.
So those are that's the order of magnitude we're talking about, 50-ish gallons per day. And it's not a big cost to answer your question. That may be $50 a day for chemical and electrical, not a whole lot in the big picture. We're in industry, so a 50 amp motor is small to us. So but it's the idea of just why are we doing that is the more the question, right? Because it goes into the sump and then right out the drain when the blower.
We are in a force majeure for sodium hypochlorite. I don't know if the APCD has heard, but a major chemical manufacturer has eliminated a membrane process for generation of sodium hypochlorite. So we are in a chemical emergency shortage right now. I do want to add that. So where we can save it could be fairly critical for our other processes. It hasn't been an issue yet. We've been working very closely with EPA, Department of Homeland Security, and our drinking water facilities have had a little bit more of an issue. But I do want to add, we are currently and actively in a force majeure situation for sodium hypochlorite.
When you actually talk about the force majeure, I mean, I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
So I'm clear on this. So normally those chemicals would be sprayed upstream of the bank, the absorber section of the scrubber. There's no blower, so there's nothing to carry this reagent into the scrubber. It's just dripping off the bank into the sump.
Yeah, it's coming off of the nozzles off the top and just dripping down with it usually would go through the media, but it's just dripping down and going right to the sump.
Okay.
And there's no counter flowser that would give the load, right? So the bleach is flowing down, the air is supposed to flow up, and that's where you get your exchange, your treatment with no air. It's just dripping down and into the sump. There's nothing to treat.
Thank
So
you.
with the current conditions, I mean, following up, on Bill's, questioning here. So with the current conditions, that you, is it your position though that adding, that those chemicals, that it would not benefit, anything regarding odor?
That's our position.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, we can add it, and we are, because that was the request, but with the system not in operation, it's not necessarily stripping odors, because that's not how it's designed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those are the things that we actually have to do during the emergency, because we really have no idea how to continue to do those elements as well. So no, thank you so very much. Right on point. Bill, as usual. So Member Hurst, are there any questions?
I have none. I want to thank you though for this side conversation, because it filled in some areas that I was curious about as well. So I have no questions now.
Okay. No, thank you so very much. Certainly, since again, we're looking, at an essential public service, we just want to make sure that you can continue. Trust me, I'm your neighbor. You need to operate. So, but the district actually raised a couple of questions, of you. So to see whether or not we can make those 6 findings in the next scheduled meeting, okay? Definitely the aspect of the conditions on the permit, that's not an issue whatsoever. But I heard, the district, indicating why were parts not ordered when the vibrations were first detected? And I think that that's one of the questions that they actually have. I could answer, but it's your job to answer that question.
I think Scott's unmuting.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, because normally these things they look at and they can solve it right away. And like I said, we do have 2 other blowers on the shelf waiting to be installed, but they were the left-hand ones.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we recently switched over from with a new maintenance supervisor that just came on, and we could have overlooked it, like we had them there thinking that we had them. So,
And the question was, why was not a different action taken from the vibration? And the answer is that not all vibrations, everything vibrates, right? So you have to make a decision on, do you need to repair it? You have to order something or not. And at that point, obviously they did not feel it was necessary to order something for the vibration. So that is it. And I just don't know who that person was. Ryan wasn't here. I don't know, Scott, if you remember that particular work order and what was done instead of ordering a part or repairing or whatever the question was.
Yeah, I don't recall right offhand, but yeah, like I said, they were gung-ho to get it repaired and get it back in service, and that's what we were striving for.
And to be honest with you, I truly believe, again, this is just my view, of having many motors here into the laboratory, so I think that would be the first approach. So certainly, on a unit, that is not just the cost of the, blower itself, but certainly, the maintenance, taking it down, and repairing and replacing and all these other elements, that come, with it. So, so how much, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Rodriguez, just before you go on to another point. What exactly did you want to see when the work order for when the vibration was noticed?
No, the question was made by the APCD. I did not make the question. I'm just repeating the question.
So I'll ask the APCD then, what would they have liked to seen when the crew noticed the vibration at first?
Well, just to clarify, I think our question was sort of based around the fact that the initial problem was notified to us as an emergency breakdown. So that was a structural kind of catastrophic event based on the vibrations. But we noticed in the petition documents submitted that as early as September 7th, the maintenance staff were recording unusual vibrations. And then it seemed to progress and become worse. And around mid-October, I think it was identified in the comments that we needed to order a blower needed to be ordered. And so we just wanted some clarification on kind of how unforeseen it was, and just to have you speak around that point, because that is, one of the issues that the board typically needs to consider to, make their decision.
I see. So it's the October statement that we made that we were thinking that we should have ordered it and we didn't order it. That's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm basically just pointing out the unforeseeability factor that, we just wanted some clarification on, because it didn't seem like, based on the documentation provided in the petition, it was completely unexpected.
I see.
So we wanted some clarification on the timeline.
I'll forward that to Scott and Ryan then. So did we imply that we should have ordered it in October and we didn't?
Oh, sorry, I had someone calling me on the other line. As far as ordering one, I think we were still looking at it as a repair. I thought we could weld up the frame and get it going right away. And I thought and then I thought we had the other two blowers up there, and I, not knowing myself that it was two left-handed ones.
Okay, so I see. So it sounds like just because somebody puts it in a work order that we should have ordered it doesn't mean that the team made that final decision. So there may have just been that type of impression given to the APCD that in October we may have decided not to order, but like Scott said, to go a different route. So I'm just trying to establish that we didn't drop the ball. Basically, we did have a plan at each point, and it just appears that we did, but I don't think that we did. So I just wanted to make that clear to the APCD.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reasonableness of the aspect now here on how you treat this, also comes into play. So again, I'm only one member, with a little bit of experience here, and I'd say that it was very reasonable. And so it says that there no comparison given in one of your last statements. That Ms. McGee, as you were actually, I think, that was on for section C. So could you please either pull up, that, or just provide us a context? You said no comparison was given on emissions.
Correct. We wanted to have just, again, kind of what just happened with finding B to be complete for finding C, to make sure that the petitioner was able to answer that question about clearly what the alternatives are in terms of emissions for with and without. So that's a clarification question there.
Okay,
make sure that it's thorough.
Okay, no, sounds good. So thus far, it seems as though that they're not, out of compliance regarding emissions, and definitely no nuisance. That based on the adherence not to the conditions from the emergency variance. Perfect. Okay, good. And then the last one, this is an interesting one. I can answer that, but it's up to petitioner. I think that they have provided. That what efforts have they made to achieve compliance? Instead of requesting a variance, so when sitting and the evidence provided and the information provided, I think, they actually had no other choice to request but a variance. Are we in agreement with that?
Yeah.
So, and such is life, life happens, but I actually have to say, that this variance request, the engagement between, the petitioner and the APCD has been absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I definitely would like to see more of this actually happening in the future. And this is certainly an example. Nothing ever, actually is perfect, in life. So it is not how it is that we can compromise, to get a win-win for everybody involved, and as you know, that's what I strive for, so that, again, either other members of the public, and whether it be private or commercial whether it be commercial or government, they can actually come to us, and with the help that they need, to get them back into compliance. Are there any questions from the members of the board? No.
I have none.
Bill? Okay, there you go, Bill.
Just at the right time, that I do think in these findings, we should not have them dumping reagent in a box with no blower. And so we should modify the conditions to reflect that.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important, because we're a steward, not just of the air. Okay, so that's it. I know that's our focus, but personally, that's not the only stewardship, that we actually provide. Any other comments? That Ms. Rigby.
Just a little clarification, because I have seen this with, the couple of days we had the equipment offline. I do want to make sure if the board is considering eliminating that requirement to also make sure the daily readings are included with that, because we are expected to collect daily readings. And I don't want to be out of compliance for daily readings if we're not dosing chemicals. So if the board decides to go that direction, I'd like to request that be included, just to make sure we're clear with our inspector.
Oh, yeah, we're going to go back, to that slide number 11.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay.
Okay, so
thank you.
No problem, ma'am. So, Madam Clerk, could you please show slide number 11 again, just to make sure that we are in alignment here?
Yes, I will pull that up again.
Thank you.
And does the city get a copy of this presentation after the hearing? Or can the city request a copy of the presentation? Okay.
You can download it, yes, definitely, from the SharePoint.
Heather's
It's
nodding,
it's a public record. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So
Yes,
that's why, yeah. Go ahead.
I can post this online, and I can also email it directly to you, Lori, and then you can distribute it to whoever you please. Okay, let me just share my screen here.
Thank you so very much. This is key. Okay, definitely going back, to what Bill, indicated, and definitely petitioner. We definitely see the need, to eliminate B3. And certainly along with that one, and based as well, on the fact that Patricia has provided, evidence here, that also B4. Okay, because they actually go hand in hand.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Bill, would that be, okay?
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. They still do need to monitor hydrogen sulfide, right? That's not necessarily related to the chemical usage, or does Oceanside see those two as hand in glove?
I do, only because there's airflow there. We take it at many different areas in the plant, but this one is local. We could take it in the head space above the basin, but it's not flowing through the unit.
Right. You just reminded me of what's happening there. So no further questions.
Yeah.
I agree, Chair.
Yeah, so thank you so very much. Yeah, those two go together, though, but the other measurements, they, APCD can always get, so separately.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
And may I speak?
Yes, Mr. Guzman.
Just to be clear, as Lori mentioned, the B list is not specific to actual readings on the faceplate of the machine. But I think Lori and I are thinking that we are turning off we're requesting that we're turning off the machine, and there won't be any numbers to read. So just to be clear that there won't be any ORP, oxidation reduction potential, no pH, and no flow readings. Does that everyone understand that?
Well, the request was for condition number 4, not for conditions 1, 2, 3. That would actually eliminate, the need for you to take readings.
Oh, I'm just speaking to the fact that once the machine's offline, those numbers will not be available, I guess. And I don't know how to put that in there, honestly, yes.
Well, it would seem to me, Chair, that even if the machine's off and somebody's noting down once a day readings that show the machine's off, that's fine. It's just demonstrating the machine is off, because what we're talking about is when that fan is on, 3 and 4 are operational. It's really a fan on, fan off issue.
Correct. Very binary on that one. I agree with you. Okay, so any other comments that we would actually have on those conditions? I think, that will be okay. Okay. Good. So I'm going to be closing certainly, the public part, of the meeting. That means, that these conversations is exclusively amongst the members of the board. Okay. So, no interruptions, please. And so that we can actually go through this process, of the decision making and then, capturing as well. Okay. So I just want to know, for each one of us, to provide, some feedback on what we have actually heard and seen. And our status, on the granting of the variance or not, for petitioner. I'll start, based on what has been presented and certainly with the familiarity and focusing particularly on the the compliance efforts that petitioner has made. I have no problem actually finding good cause not to grant an interim variance, which will carry them through to the next meeting where we are going to be hearing the regular variance. As it stands today, I can certainly make a finding, make the 6 findings for the regular variance. They're definitely in violation, of the permit conditions. Then there's definitely, the issue of immediate compliance. It would be a burden to the essential public service. With the unit off, they at least know they have data, to corroborate, they have not had, any issues with regards not to air contaminants, or any nuisance, reports to date. And certainly, they have actually had made many efforts, to come into compliance expeditiously, and they need a variance, to get them through, to full compliance according to the conditions of the permit. So based on those facts, I can definitely make a finding of good cause for the interim variance. Bill, would you like to go next and see, what your views and feelings are on this one?
Oh, I agree, Chair, with what you just said. The only detail issue I have is just making sure that B3 and B4 reflect they are taking that data only when the fan or when the blower is operational versus when it isn't.
Thank you so very much. Ms. Hurst?
Thank you, Chair Rodriguez. I would agree with both you and Member Powers in finding good cause for this interim variance. I must be very transparent and say I think I learned a few things today I didn't know prior to the beginning of this meeting. So that was extremely helpful, and it was also helpful to rely on sort of the good faith presentations that we were able to review today to inform us, to help us to make a very good decision that benefits the work that you're doing. So I also would agree.
Thank you. Well, if that's the case, well, since I started, might as well just make the motion, isn't it? Just to kind of go with this. Well, if that is the case, definitely I move, to grant, the interim variance. For petition 4525, City of Oceanside Wastewater Treatment Plant. Good cause has been found based on the following. The petitioner is an essential public service needing a variance, to come back into compliance to all the conditions of the current permit. And the permit number is APCD 2006-PTO-920530. The variance has been granted to condition number 4. The second item, on the good cause, has to do, with the manner in which the petitioner has addressed the resourceful aspect of internal, hold it, the petitioner has addressed, the breakdown in an expeditious manner. Despite the fact, that this is a government agency, that has a very challenging, process, to obtain budget monies, to repair, that there's a breakdown. The third one, it has been the fact, that the data, that has been captured during the emergency variance and all the conditions stipulated under the emergency variance has been met, by petitioner, in a timely basis and complete fashion. Therefore, showing good faith, not only on the repair, but definitely on the conditions of the emergency variance. And four, the petitioner has looked at options, not only for a permanent preventative action, which is the replacement, of the broken down, equipment with a new equipment by implementing, a temporary fashion, with a refurbished, blower, for example, that can actually bring them back to compliance. So based on those actions, definitely that is a good cause. Now the conditions. If you can actually place, the slide number 11 there as well, Dawn, I would greatly appreciate it. So the conditions of the variance are the following. Okay, so the district actually definitely, request notification to the district. When the following milestones are achieved. By 11/29, you may have to submit an application and fees to the district. Due to the fact, that the exchange of the change of the blower, may not be an in-kind change of the blower. So therefore, that there may be a permit, the provision on that one. When the new media and the new blower are purchased, and then when it's received, and those temporary repairs that for that, blower that will be installed. And then, on B, petitioner is going to keep the aeration basin covered. Okay. You're going to report any nuisance complaints, order nuisance complaints by 4 p.m. daily. You are going to then, submit a weekly report, on the conditions and definitely follow the maintenance procedures, for any equipment on that. So, since you are definitely continuing with the temporary repairs as needed, please submit also the weekly reports by noon on Friday. You can combine with the report on B, on the operational status of the temporary repairs, okay? And of course, number 2, is really very critical. So those will be the conditions. That will be my motion. Do I get a second? Oh,
I am happy to second that.
Thank you, Member Hurst. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Rodriguez?
Yes.
Member Hurst?
Yes.
Member Powers?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes with all board members who are present voting aye.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It's always a pleasure. I actually have to say, though, that I just have to emphasize, the work that has been done, amongst all groups here, it needs to be highlighted. Oftentimes, we have, incomplete presentations and oftentimes, very, disengaged people. That actually doesn't happen often, but nonetheless, this is not the case here. So on a personal level, I have to actually thank you, for all the efforts. And now let's actually talk about, the regular variance, okay? So you need to put a refinement. Again, it's not a requirement, but it helps you a lot to put a refinement in the presentation, Ms. Rigby. It would be really very nice, for you to put also a slide presentation. Okay, and as you said, as you know, maybe you have to have your legal department review it. But on the day off, it's very uncommon that we accept the presentation, but nonetheless, it will be really very helpful. And then
I just wasn't told in advance about the expectation of a hearing. So
again, it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement. it's not a requirement. I mean, that's so I'm just saying, you know, something, you know, I mean, this is like a lesson learned. I mean, allowing you to grow, I mean, as a professional. Okay. And then that way you actually keep, you know, your audience very focused. Okay, so that way you can anticipate the questions. I mean, the things of that nature. I mean, member Hurst is laughing out there, you know, because I said, okay, that's what I tell my students and everybody else. So, I mean, take it as though, I mean, as a lessons learned. Okay, so she and I and Bill, I mean, we teach, you know, I mean, and again, it's just, you know, for development and growth. Okay, so I mean, that's about it. Okay.
Oh, if I may say something, in Lori's defense, I think if we're talking about growth, I think it would have been nice for the board to say, hey, typically we'd like to see a presentation, because we are not board members and panels are very rare for us. So I think that would be good if the board moving forward would let people like us know, you know, things like that. That would be very appreciated.
That would be definitely, I mean, something that would you gauge, you know, I mean, with the clerk of the board. We do not speak to you beforehand. I mean, we actually have a very narrow window of operation and the rules of engagement, and definitely we do not engage with petitioners beforehand. Okay, I mean, or during, you know, this process. So, but, you know, definitely, you know, I mean, you can get that guidance from the APCD. And you can get also that guidance, I mean, from the clerk of the board. I'm just, I mean, using, you know, this additional time that we actually have or not. I mean, that to, again, you know, I mean, this is very open. Again, you know, I mean, even petitioners, Mr. Guzman, they don't even have to show up, you know, I mean, for us to be able to hear it. Again, I mean, that you did fantastic. So not a concern, not a problem, but it's one of those things, you know, that the ones of us know have spent a lot of time, you know, in this business, we learn sometimes the hard way. Okay, so and I just want to pass this down. I mean, Bill.
Yeah, just I think Mr. Guzman's comment is a very good one, and is that something, Mary, that the APCD can do? Is just alert petitioners in advance of our hearings that they have the option and are encouraged to do PowerPoints, because that seems like a fair offer to make to petitioners.
Absolutely. We try and educate them on the hearing board process as well as the specifics of their petition. And so, you know, we certainly try and let them know of the formalized deadlines, but we'll make sure to also add that they can try adding anything to the record on the day of as well.
Thank you.
Yes. And I think it's really very important, particularly, I mean, since we're having all these Zoom meetings, you know, I mean, so, you know, just to keep us here, you know, so it would not be, you know, yeah, it's just a thing. I mean, Mr. Plotner, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chairman. So we have a ton of information on our website as well, and we will help this petitioner and future petitioners as much as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Well, I mean, that if there's nothing else, no, I mean, that to be presented to the board, I mean, that I think, you know, that it is time, you know, to close the hearing. I mean, so I certainly appreciate, I mean, the commitment of time and effort, I mean, that particularly from the board members and APCD and petitioner. And without anything else, I actually have to say, you know, that I wish you a great, you know, Thanksgiving. And I'm very thankful for all of you, you know, that are here and making this San Diego better every single day. Okay. Bye now.